Executive parking lot. Voss Meridian Mobility. 7:48 Monday morning. Adelaide Voss stepped out of her SUV with 3 New York board members behind her. A dusty 1969 Camaro sat crooked across 2 spots, a man in flannel wiping the windshield with his sleeve. Adelaide laughed and said someone had confused the lot with a junkyard. The directors laughed with her. The man looked up. His eyes moved across each of their faces. He did not smile. He nodded once, lifted a leather case from the trunk stamped Brennan IP Holdings, and walked into the building ahead of them. By 9 o'clock that same morning, the 14th floor conference room was filled with the quiet hum of fluorescent light and the soft tap of laptops opening. Reese Manderley stood at the front, gesturing toward a slide. The $100 million acquisition of perpetual usage rights for the SP9 powertrain platform, he explained, would be negotiated with what he called a limited liability entity holding the intellectual property. He never named the entity. The 3 New York directors sat in the front row, hands folded, watching closely. The door opened. The man from the parking lot walked in. His hands were clean now, but he still wore the same faded flannel. He set the leather case on the polished table without ceremony. "Hold Brennan," he said. "Brennan IP Holdings. I am the person you are buying this technology from." Adelaide did not move. Her face stayed even. Only her fingers, wrapped around her coffee cup, tightened until the porcelain whitened beneath them. The 3 New York directors recognized him at once. One of them lowered his pen. Another, the oldest, leaned forward slightly in his chair. Reese tried to recover. He gestured toward the slides, began to walk through the thermal modeling assumptions in the engineering brief. Holt let him speak for 2 minutes. Then he stopped him with a single raised hand. "There are 3 errors in your thermodynamic calculations," he said. "The boundary layer assumption on slide 9, the compressor map you pulled from the SAE white paper, which was retracted in 2024, and the regenerative braking efficiency curve, which is using an outdated test cycle from 2019. Reese opened his mouth, closed it. He glanced at his engineering team in the second row. None of them met his eyes. One of the New York directors made a note in the margin of his agenda. Holt did not press the point. He sat down, opened his case, and pulled out a single page. "I will need 10 days, he said, "before I sign. I want to walk through your facility, meet your engineering team, observe how your company operates from the inside. If you pass, I sign on day 10. If you do not, I license the platform elsewhere." He stood up, gathered his page, and walked to the window. The Camaro sat below in the lot, its silver-gray paint visible now where he had wiped it clean. He turned to the room. "That car," he said, "is the testbed for the SP9. The prototype platform is installed under the hood. You all had a chance to see it this morning. Some of you did not see it." He looked at Adelaide for exactly 1 second. Then he walked out. The room was quiet for a long moment after the door closed. Reese cleared his throat and began to speak about scheduling. Adelaide raised one hand and stopped him. She asked him to stay after the meeting. The directors filed out slowly. The oldest of the 3 paused at the doorway. He did not turn around. He stood there for a beat, listening, then walked away down the corridor. Adelaide closed the conference room door. She looked at Reese. She did not raise her voice. "You did not tell me his name," she said. "You did not put it in the brief. You did not put it in the agenda." Reese said he had not known. He said the LLC structure was unusual. He said his diligence team had not been able to confirm the principal until the meeting itself. She did not believe him. She kept her face still. She told him she wanted a full background memorandum on Brennan IP Holdings on her desk by the next morning. He said it would be there. She walked back to her office. She did not sit down. She stood at the window and looked at the empty space in the lot where the Camaro had been. The decision to investigate quietly, without him, was already forming behind her eyes. That night, the building was almost empty. Adelaide sat alone in her corner office. The city lights spread below the 14th floor windows. She pulled up the United States Patent and Trademark Office database on her personal laptop, not the company workstation. She typed in Brennan powertrain. 27 patents appeared on the screen. Every one of them listed Holt Brennan as the sole inventor. Not Brennan Hale Performance. Not a corporate assignee. Him. The core patent for the SP9 hybrid platform, filed in late 2021, named him alone. The continuations, the divisional applications, the international filings, all of them. He had built the architecture in his own name and kept it that way. She kept reading. She found a press release from 2023. Halberg Drivetrain of Detroit had publicly offered $140 million for an outright purchase of the SP9 portfolio. The offer had been refused. She found two more. A European consortium in 2024, a private equity firm in early 2025, all refused. He did not want to sell. He wanted to license, on his terms, to someone he chose. Adelaide sat back in her chair. The weight of it settled slowly. Holt did not need Voss Meridian. Voss Meridian needed him, and Reese had presented the deal in exactly the opposite frame. As if Holt were a small inventor who would be grateful for the $100 million. She lifted her phone. She drafted a message to Holt. She did not send it. She set the phone down on the desk. She stood up and walked to the window. The parking lot below was empty. The Camaro was gone. She thought about the way she had laughed that morning. Not the volume of it, which had been small, the reflex of it. The way the directors had laughed with her because she had laughed first. She tried to remember when she had started doing that, and could not. In Black Mountain, 40 minutes east of the city, Holt Brennan was closing the doors of his garage on Sutton Mill Road. Mira was asleep on the long couch he kept along the back wall. Her father's old flannel pulled across her shoulders, a half-eaten apple on a plate beside her. He set a wool blanket over her. He picked up his laptop from the workbench. On the screen, a live feed showed the Voss Meridian executive lot from a small camera Mason Hale Jr. had installed the week before. The lot was empty, except for one window glowing on the 14th floor. Reese Manderley's office. The shape of a man inside, hunched at a desk, typing. Holt watched for a long time. Then he took a screenshot, closed the laptop, and rested his hand on the hood of the Camaro for a moment, as he passed it on his way to the house. The metal was cool under his palm. He listened to the engine block the way a doctor listens for breath. He was not in a hurry. Adelaide drove home that night through quiet streets. When she arrived at her townhouse, she sat in her car for a full minute before going inside. She did not turn on the radio. The next morning, when she walked into her office at 6:50, there was a plain white envelope on her desk. No name. No return address. She opened it. Inside was a single slip of paper with an address handwritten in careful block letters. Sutton Mill Road, Black Mountain. At the bottom, two initials. H.Y. Adelaide left the office before 7, took her own car, and drove east into the mountains. She did not call her assistant. She did not tell Reese. The drive took 25 minutes through low cloud and pine. She passed the town center of Black Mountain, took a narrow road past a feed store and a closed diner, and found the garage exactly where the slip of paper had said it would be. It was a low wooden building with a tin roof. The hand-painted sign read Brennan Garage. The bay door was open. Inside, the Camaro sat under work lights, its silver-gray paint cleaned to its original factory finish, a deep luminous color that caught the light differently from any modern car. Holt was at a test bench, watching a pressure gauge climb. Mira was on a stool beside him, swinging her legs, drawing in a small notebook. Mira saw Adelaide first. She tilted her head and said, "Are you the lady from yesterday?" Holt set down the gauge. He wiped his hands on a rag, walked over without surprise. He had been expecting someone. Maybe not her, not this early, but someone. She did not apologize for the laugh in the parking lot. She had come for a different question. "Why us?" she asked. "Why Voss Meridian? Halberg offered you 40 million more." Holt nodded slowly. He gestured to a folding chair. She sat. He stood. "Halberg makes truck engines," he said. "Big displacement, big margins. They have been building the same architecture for 30 years. If they bought my platform, they would shelve it. They would let it die in a vault somewhere in Detroit. I know this because they told me, in a meeting in their own boardroom, that this is what they intended to do. They wanted the patents off the market so their existing product line would last another decade. He paused. He looked at the Camaro. I built this with my wife, he said, in our garage. She did the layout. I did the thermal mapping. We finished the prototype in September of 2021. 3 weeks later, she was diagnosed. She did not get to see it run. He was quiet for a moment. Mira had stopped swinging her legs. I will not sell this to someone who is going to bury it, he said. I will license it to someone who is going to drive it. That is the only criterion that matters to me. Adelaide listened without interrupting. There is one more thing, he said. Mason Hale Jr. runs Brennan Hale Performance now. His father and I founded it together in 2011. Mason called me 3 weeks ago. Your COO had met him in Charlotte, at a hotel bar. Reese Manderley proposed that the SP9 intellectual property be restructured into Brennan Hale Performance, instead of remaining with my holding company. He told Mason it would simplify the deal for your side. Mason refused. Adelaide felt the ground shift slightly. Reese had been trying to remove Holt from the equation entirely. If the IP had been folded into Brennan Hale Performance, Reese could have negotiated with people he could influence. Holt was the one obstacle he could not move. That is why I asked for 10 days, Holt said. I am here to find out who in your company is clean and who is not. Mira walked over with a small bolt in her open palm. She held it up to Adelaide. Do you know what size this is? She asked. Adelaide looked at it. I do not, she said. Mira said, it is an M8, with patience. She set it on the corner of the workbench. Holt did not interrupt. He let his daughter handle the moment. Before Adelaide left, she said she would help. Quietly. Off the books. Holt agreed with one condition. She was not to tell anyone in her company until he gave the word. She nodded. As she walked to her car, she heard him on a speakerphone inside the garage. Mason, he said. She came. Begin phase 2. The track test ran for 3 days at a private facility outside Charlotte. Voss Meridian's engineering team set up benches at the pit wall. The Camaro, with the SP9 prototype installed, ran lap after lap, recorded by sensors and cameras and the watchful eyes of a half-dozen engineers in headsets. Adelaide was there all 3 days. She wore a windbreaker and stood at the rail. Reese came too. He had no choice. The COO was required to be present for major capital equipment testing. He spent most of his time talking to a young engineer named Beckett Lane, a recent hire on the powertrain integration team. Adelaide watched the conversation from a distance. Later that evening, she asked her chief of staff to pull Beckett's recent communications. The next morning, the answer came back. Beckett had received 3 LinkedIn messages in the past week from a recruiter at Halberg Drivetrain. 2 of the messages mentioned a starting salary that was nearly double what Voss Meridian paid him. Adelaide did not act on the information yet. She filed it. She wanted to see what Reese would do with the young engineer in the next 48 hours. On the 3rd afternoon, the lead engineer for Voss Meridian walked over to Adelaide at the rail. He held a tablet. He did not smile. He said, "This technology is real. It is 2 years ahead of where we are. The numbers are clean. We are looking at a 17% improvement over our internal benchmark, and the thermal load curve is flatter than anything else on the market. If we deploy it, we leapfrog the competition." Adelaide nodded. She thanked him. She looked across the track. Holt was standing beside the Camaro, one hand resting on the hood. His head tilted slightly, as if listening through the metal. She understood the gesture now. He was hearing the engine. That night, the 2 of them sat in a roadside diner near Charlotte. Vinyl booth, plastic menus, 2 mugs of coffee. They did not talk about the contract. He told her about the Camaro. He and Lila had found it on a farm in Tennessee in 2018. They had paid $4,200 for it. They had planned to restore it together. She had picked the color out from an old factory chart from '69, a shade called Cortez Silver, rare even at the time. Adelaide did not say anything. She let the silence sit. She turned her coffee cup in a slow quarter rotation. Before they left, she said she had been wrong about him at the lot. He looked at her across the table. "You were not wrong about me," he said. "You were wrong about the car. There is a difference." He paid the check. He held the door for her on the way out, the way a person does without thinking. She drove back to Asheville alone on the highway. She did not turn on the radio. In a motel room near the track, Reese Manderley closed his laptop, picked up his burner phone, and made a call. The voice on the other end was short. "The test went well," Reese said. "She is leaning their way. I need plan B. Activate the Hollis option." He hung up. He opened a separate email account, drafted a letter to his outside counsel in Atlanta, and sent instructions. By morning, a cease and desist threatening litigation under a non-disclosure agreement would be in the inbox of a 67-year-old night security guard whose wife had Parkinson's disease. The envelope arrived at Adelaide's townhouse just before 11 on Saturday morning. The courier left it on the porch and drove away. There was no return address. Inside was a photocopy of a handwritten page. The handwriting was a woman's, slanted and even. The date at the top was November 2021. The letter was addressed to no one in particular. It was titled, "To Whoever Comes Next. Holt will not sell SP9 on his own." The writer had written, "He will wait. He will wait until someone comes to him and looks at the car. If they only see dust, they are not the right people. If they see what it is, he might let them have the rest of him." The signature was Lila Brennan. A typed slip was clipped to the page. 2 initials. HY. That same morning in a small house on the east side of Asheville, Hollis Yates was reading an email on his old desktop computer. His hands were shaking, but not from the email. They had shaken since 2019. The email was from a law firm in Atlanta. It threatened action under a non-disclosure agreement he had signed when he took the security guard position at Voss Meridian. The agreement, the letter said, prohibited any contact with parties involved in Brennan Hale performance. Violation would result in immediate termination of employment, forfeiture of accrued pension benefits, and loss of health coverage. Hollis sat very still. In the next room, his wife Doris was watching a morning show. The volume turned low. Her medication for the Parkinson's cost more than his rent. Without the company health plan, they would lose the house within 6 months. He read the email 3 times. Then he closed it. At 1 in the afternoon, Adelaide walked into the lobby of the Voss Meridian building. She did not have a meeting. She went straight to the security desk. Hollis Yates was on the day shift today, covering a colleague. He looked up. She did not ask about Holt. She did not mention Brennan Hale. She set a business card on the counter and slid it toward him. A name. A direct line. An address. "Whatever non-disclosure Manderley made you sign," she said, "take it to this attorney. Your pension is yours. So is your health plan. He cannot take either." Hollis looked at the card. He looked at her. He had worked at Voss Meridian for 9 months. She had never spoken to him before. He picked up the card. He folded it once. He put it in his shirt pocket. "There is a USB drive," he said quietly. "From 2022. If you want it." Adelaide nodded. She told him to call the attorney first. She told him not to come to the lobby again until they had spoken. He understood. She walked back to her office, closed the door, and pulled up the company's internal access logs. She typed in Reese Manderley. The list scrolled down her screen. He had administrative access to the entire intellectual property due diligence library. She had not granted that access. She had not signed off on it. She pulled the audit trail. The permissions had been issued in October of 2022. 3 days after her father's stroke, when Reese had been acting chief executive on an interim basis, he had given the access to himself. He had never relinquished it when she took the seat. She sat back. She understood the architecture of what he had built. She picked up her phone and called her own personal attorney at home. Sunday morning, in a small coffee shop on the east side of Asheville, Adelaide met Hollis Yates. She brought a folder with the preliminary legal opinion her attorney had drafted overnight. The non-disclosure agreement Reese had pressured Hollis to sign violated 3 provisions of North Carolina labor law. It would not survive a courtroom. The cease and desist letter was a bluff. Hollis read the page slowly. When he finished, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small USB drive. He set it on the table between them. "It is not one recording," he said. "It is 3 years of them. I used to be a test engineer at Brennan Hale. I recorded everything at home out of habit. I would forget to turn the device off." He slid the drive across. "In 2022, he said, Reese came to my house. He offered me $80,000 in cash for everything I knew about the SP9. I told him no. In 2023, he came back. He offered me the security guard job at Voss Meridian. The salary was enough to keep me quiet. I needed the health plan for my wife. I took it." He paused. He looked at his hands. "In 2024, he said, he came to my house again. He brought someone with him. A man from Halberg Drivetrain, senior executive. Name was Garrett Vall. I was in the kitchen. They were in the living room. They did not know I had the recorder on the bookshelf. They talked for 45 minutes. They talked about how to ruin Voss Meridian. Before the SP9 deal even came to the table. They talked about pricing the technology so high that your father would reject it. They wanted the board to push you out after he died. They wanted Reese to take the CEO seat." Adelaide held the USB drive in her palm. It weighed almost nothing. She closed her fingers around it. Reese had not just been undermining the deal. He had been engineering her failure from before she became CEO, from before her father had even fallen ill. She thanked Hollis. She told him to be at the building at 8 on Monday morning. But not in his guard uniform. She would have a different position for him by then. She drove directly to Black Mountain. She did not call ahead. Holt was in the garage. Mira was inside the house with her aunt, who had driven up for the afternoon. Adelaide handed Holt the USB without speaking. He took it. He carried it to the small office in the back of the garage and plugged it into the laptop on the desk. She watched him listen. His face did not change. He sat with his hands folded, his elbows on the desk, his eyes on a fixed point on the wall. When the third file finished, he closed the laptop slowly. "So I was right," he said. "Thank you for not burying it alone." They agreed on the plan. Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, Adelaide would handle Reese with her authority as chief executive. Holt would handle the intellectual property side through his own attorneys and through Brennan Hale's outside counsel. As she was getting ready to leave, Holt's phone rang. He looked at the screen. Mason Hale, Jr. He put it on speaker. Mason said one sentence. "Halberg filed a patent challenge this morning against the SP9. They want it tied up in litigation for years." Holt did not react. He thanked Mason and ended the call. "Phase B," he said quietly. "Reese is burning the deal as he goes down." Adelaide stopped at the door. She turned. "We will handle it," she said. "We will," he said, "Monday morning." 9 o'clock. The large conference room on the 14th floor of the Voss Meridian building. Adelaide had prepared everything. 2 outside counsel from her personal attorney's firm. The head of internal legal, the head of human resources, a forensic technician from the company's information technology team, a camera in the corner, recording. 2 of the 3 New York directors from the Monday before were in the room as board observers. They had requested the seats themselves, after asking quiet questions over the weekend. Reese walked in at 1 minute to 9. He took his usual seat at the long table. He set his laptop down. He smiled at the directors. He did not smile at Adelaide. She did not stand. She did not raise her voice. She spoke for 11 minutes without interruption. She played the Hollis recordings. All 3 of them. The room was silent through the 2024 meeting. The voice of Garrett Vole, the Halberg executive, was clear on the recording. She presented the email metadata her information technology team had pulled from the company's servers overnight. She handed across copies of his access logs to the intellectual property library. She laid out the wire transfer records, traced through 3 shell companies, showing $2.3 million from Halberg Drivetrain into a limited liability entity, registered in Delaware under the name of Reese's wife. Reese did not interrupt. He sat very still. When she finished, he straightened his cuffs and tried a different approach. He threatened to sue. He cited his employment contract. He spoke about reputational damages and unlawful termination. Adelaide listened. When he was done, she answered him in 3 sentences. "You have the right to sue," she said. "You will also face fiduciary breach, federal wire fraud, and a Securities and Exchange Commission filing that my counsel submitted at 8 o'clock this morning. Choose." His face went pale. The directors did not speak. One of them was writing. The door opened. Holt Brennan walked in. Mason Hale Jr. was behind him. They were not there to celebrate. Holt set a folder on the table and slid it toward Adelaide. He did not look at Reese. "Halberg withdrew the patent challenge 20 minutes ago," he said. "My attorneys delivered a copy of the Yates recordings to their general counsel at 7 this morning. They chose to cut their losses rather than be named in the SEC filing. Reese is now alone." He set a second folder in front of Adelaide. "This is a replacement proposal," he said. "Not a $100 million one-time license purchase. A joint venture. Brennan IP Holdings retains 51% of the SP9 portfolio. Voss Meridian holds 49% and exclusive deployment rights for 15 years. I will serve as licensing architect, part-time, 10 days per month, based out of your Asheville facility. My daughter stays in Black Mountain. I will not relocate her." Adelaide read the first page. She understood what he was offering. It was not a reward. It was an engineering decision. He needed a long-term partner, not a one-time buyer. He had decided in the 10 days he had watched her that she was that partner. Security stepped forward to escort Reese out. He stood up slowly. He looked once at Hollis Yates, who was standing by the door. No longer in a guard uniform, Hollis was wearing a clean white shirt and a charcoal jacket. Adelaide had named him senior test track advisor that morning. The promotion paperwork was already signed. Reese left. The directors from New York stood and shook Holt's hand. They had seen what they needed to see. The room emptied until only 3 remained. Adelaide, Holt, Mason. Adelaide turned the page on the joint venture proposal. "You have 2 days left in your countdown, Mr. Brennan," she said. "What do you want to do with them?" Holt thought about it. He said, "Coffee, if you are willing." She nodded once. Slow, definite. Day 9. 4:30 in the afternoon. Adelaide drove out to Black Mountain in her own car. In a sweater and jeans, no driver. She parked on the main street and walked to Dynamite Coffee. Holt was at a window table with Mira. The little girl was bent over a sketch pad. Mira looked up. She held out the page. "The wheel I drew is wonky," she said. "It is always wonky." "Do you know how to draw a wheel?" Adelaide sat down across from her. "I do not," she said, "but I will try." She took the pencil. She drew slowly. The wheel came out almost round. Mira inspected it carefully and pronounced it acceptable. Holt watched without interrupting. Mira asked what muffin Adelaide liked best. Adelaide said she did not know. Mira slid half of her own blueberry muffin across the table. Adelaide took it. She could not remember the last time she had sat in a small-town coffee shop eating a muffin a child had given her. She could not remember the last time anyone had given her anything without an agenda. After a while, Mira saw a dog on the sidewalk outside, with its owner, and asked if she could go look. Holt nodded. She went out, staying in the front window where they could see her. Holt and Adelaide sat with the silence for a moment. "I do not have children," Adelaide said. "I am not sure I want them. But I realized something this week. I have not sat with another person for more than 20 minutes without talking about my company in 6 years." Holt did not answer. He let the words stay in the air. He turned his coffee cup in a slow quarter rotation. He did not look at her. After a while, he said, "Next week I start my first 10-day cycle at the Asheville facility. The contract gets signed in the morning. After that I come back here. This is where I live. Mira goes to school down the road. We eat dinner at 6. We are in bed by 9. That is the rhythm. "Do you think we will work well together?" she asked. "I think you will learn," he said. "I will learn." That is all that needs to be true. Mira came back inside. She had named the dog Biscuit. The owner had let her pet it. She was pleased. Adelaide drove back to Asheville as the sun was setting over the ridge. She did not turn on the radio. That evening, in her office, she opened the bottom drawer of her desk. She pulled out a framed photograph she had not looked at since her father's funeral. She was 7 years old in the picture. Her father was sitting beside her in a 1972 Chevrolet pickup truck, his hand on the steering wheel, both of them squinting in the sun. She set the frame on the corner of her desk where she would see it every morning. Her phone lit up. An email from the corporate secretary. The board of directors had called an emergency meeting for 7 in the morning to discuss the SP9 joint venture. She did not know which way they would vote. The board meeting started at 7 sharp. Adelaide presented the case for 90 minutes without notes. The Reese evidence, the forensic financial trail, the Yates recordings, the withdrawn Halberg challenge, the joint venture proposal, the 17% performance margin from the Charlotte track tests. She named each piece, set it on the table, and moved to the next. 3 of the 11 directors objected. All 3 had been brought onto the board by Reese in 2022. The 2 New York directors, who had been in the conference room the day before, spoke in favor. They had seen Reese's behavior firsthand at the parking lot, at the introductory meeting, and at the termination. Adelaide presented an opinion letter from outside counsel, showing that the 3 objecting directors had failed to disclose their own financial ties to Reese's consulting affiliates. They withdrew their objections within minutes. The vote was 8 in favor, 3 abstaining. The joint venture was approved. At 10 o'clock, in the main signing room with the press from Automotive News and 3 trade publications present, Adelaide Voss and Holt Brennan signed the joint venture agreement. Hollis Yates sat in the front row of the guest seating. In his charcoal jacket, his shoulders square. Mira was at school. Holt had kept his word. The lead reporter from Automotive News asked Holt for a brief statement. He said one sentence. Voss Meridian saw the platform for what it is. He left it at that. After the photographs, after the brief remarks, after the handshakes, Holt and Adelaide walked together down the empty corridor toward the executive elevators. The marble floor was quiet under their footsteps. "Thank you, Mr. Brennan," she said. "Holt," he said. "Holt," she said. He stepped into the elevator. The doors closed. He drove the Camaro back to Black Mountain. For the first time, the car was not dusty. For the first time, it was running its SP9 engine on the open highway between Asheville and the foothills. The torque was smooth, the thermal load steady. Every parameter exactly where he had designed it to be. He picked Mira up from her elementary school at 3:15. She climbed into the passenger seat with her backpack and a folded paper crown she had made in art class. "Did you win?" she asked. "I did not win," he said. "I just finished something." "Did the lady seem happy?" she asked. He thought about it. "I think she did," he said. That evening, in her office on the 14th floor, Adelaide stood at the window. The executive lot was empty. The Camaro was gone. She did not feel its absence as a loss. She felt something else, lighter. Something she did not have a name for yet. She opened a new message. 2 lines. "Thank you for the 10 days. She sent it. A reply came back within a minute. Sunday. Black Mountain. "Mira says you owe her a wheel that is not wonky." 3 weeks later. Sunday afternoon in late May. The light over Black Mountain was soft and slanted. The kind of light that turned the pines a deeper green. Adelaide drove out from Asheville in her own car, not the company SUV. She had no agenda. She had no folder on the passenger seat. She had no calls scheduled. It was the first time in years she had driven anywhere on a Sunday for no reason at all. Holt and Mira were on the porch of the small house beside the garage. Mira was on the steps with a book open on her knees. Holt was sitting in a wooden chair, cleaning a set of socket wrenches with a soft cloth, laying each one back in its tray. Mira saw the car first. She stood up. She came down the steps and, without thinking about it, gave Adelaide a small hug around the legs. Adelaide placed her hand lightly on the top of the child's head. She held it there for a moment. She did not know what to say, so she did not say anything. They sat on the porch, the three of them. Holt poured coffee from a small enamel pot. Mira had milk. The conversation had no shape. Mira was starting 3rd grade in August. Holt was thinking about teaching her to ride a mountain bike on the trails behind the house. Adelaide admitted that she had not taken a real Sunday off in 4 years. Holt asked her what she used to do with Sundays before that. She thought about it for a long time. She said she used to read. She had not read a book in 2 years. After a while, Mira reached for her sketchbook on the porch railing. She held it out to Adelaide with both hands. "Will you draw a wheel for me?" she asked. "Mine is still wonky." Adelaide sat down on the porch step next to her. She took the pencil. She drew a wheel, slow and careful, the way she had drawn it in the coffee shop. It came out round. Mira examined it. She nodded with great seriousness. Then she went back to her book. Holt did not say anything. He watched. Across the yard, inside the open bay of the garage, the Camaro sat under a new cover, a clean canvas tarp. No dust, no grime, the silver-gray paint preserved beneath. The sun moved lower. The porch light came on automatically when the dusk reached a certain depth. Mira fell asleep on the porch swing. Her father's flannel pulled over her shoulders. Holt walked Adelaide to her car. He did not touch her. He stopped a step away. He looked at her. "There is a guest room in the main house," he said. "Mira asked me last week if you might want to stay sometime." Adelaide did not answer with words. She nodded. Slow. Definite. The same nod she had given him across the conference room table on the day they signed the agreement. She got into her car. She started the engine. She drove down the gravel drive, turned onto Sutton Mill Road, and disappeared around the bend toward Asheville. The red of her taillights flickered once between the pines and was gone. Holt stood on the porch for a while. He listened to the engine fade. Then he picked Mira up, carried her into the house, and laid her on her bed. Inside the garage, the work lights were still on. The Camaro sat under its cover. On the workbench, beside a coffee cup that was still warm, lay an old notebook in a woman's handwriting, open to a page near the back. The last line on that page had been written in November of 2021. "If someone is worthy, you will know, and you will let yourself." He turned off the lights. He pulled the door of the garage closed behind him. The latch clicked once in the quiet. Black Mountain was still under a sky full of stars.